Hello, friends. You're listening to Draws in Spanish. I'm your host, Fabiola. I'm a Chilean-American illustrator and podcaster based in Philadelphia. On this show, I chat with Latinx visual artists and designers to discuss everything from their identity and culture to their creative process and work. Today is actually a super special episode because it's the first crossover episode I've ever done. Today I have on the show Raul Pardo and Ivan Mallorquin, tuning in straight from Ciudad de Mexico, and I'm super excited to share this conversation with you. In case you're not familiar, Raul and Ivan host a podcast called Grupo de Autoayuda de Dibujo, which is available on YouTube and Spotify and everywhere else you get your podcast. I love their show because it's a self-help podcast where they chat about different creative topics that plague us artists in Spanish. In their episodes, they cover topics such as keeping a creative routine, how to have an effective client meeting, tips for getting commissions, and so much more. Now, before we get started, remember that you can also watch this episode over on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/FabiolitaDraws to watch this episode. Plus, remember you can join the free Draws in Spanish Discord to connect with other Latinx artists. The link is in the show notes, or you can head to drawsinspanish.com/chat. Now keep on listening to hear Raul and Ivan share how they got their start with illustration, how they feel about the word Latine, and why they made their podcast to begin with. This episode is so fun and I can't wait to share it with you. Okay, let's get into it. Let's go. Welcome to the show, Raul and Ivan. Welcome to Draws in Spanish. How are you feeling? Are you ready for this your English debut?
We're just like loading our English mode in our brains right now.
Hola. Yeah, we are like trying to change from Spanish to English.
It's okay. You're going to be excellent. I'm so excited to have you. I've been listening to Grupo de Autoayuda de Dibujo for a while now, and you guys have so much good advice. And it was like the first episode or the first podcast I found about art and in Spanish because it's rare. It's hard to find. So I was so excited when I found your show, and I'm even more excited to have you here in front of me today. What a pleasure. So
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us to your podcast. We really like Draws in Spanish too.
Yeah, and also like really cool we've been watching your podcast grow and move around, so it's cool to be doing a mashup.
Now we get to collab. This is my first episode with another set of podcasters.
Oh, really?
So we have amazing mics, everyone. This is beautiful.
Boom.
Yes.
Yeah, this is kind of fake, but it works for the aesthetic stuff.
Yes. Cut. Okay, so on Draws in Spanish, I usually talk with Latin American artists in the US about their identity and culture. This is new because you guys are Mexicans in Mexico, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys because I think it's a fresh, new perspective. And I think in the US, everything is about the US all the time, all day. So now I'm excited to talk and break from that a little bit. So I know you guys are based now in Ciudad de Mexico. Are you guys from Ciudad de Mexico? Where are you each from? Tell me a little bit more about you as people.
We are provincianos. So we're outside of the provinciano. What would it be? Like the people that live outside of the big city.
Capital.
Out of the capital.
Suburb people.
Yeah, kind of. So, Mallorquin, you want to say where you're from?
I am from Mazatlan, Sinaloa. It's a beach in the north of the country. And it's a very lovely place.
With
and I really like
with the best seafood in all Mexico.
Yeah,
Ooh.
The seafood is really good. The beer is really good. The people are really, really, really kind people and creative people. And I really like it. And you, Raul?
And I'm from Guadalajara, Jalisco, which I don't want to brag, but it's the birthplace of tequila, mariachi, and what else?
Super low key.
A lot of cool stuff. A lot of the Mexican cool stuff.
And what brought you to Ciudad de Mexico? Why there?
So Mallorquin came here first, like some years before me.
Yeah, like I've been here like I think like 10 years from now, kind of. I moved here just looking for a job and looking for, maybe this is something that is been changing with the years. But back then, like 10 years ago, I used to think like the big gigs in illustration and the big works and the big editorials and that kind of stuff seems like everything was here in Mexico City. So I moved here looking for that.
Yeah, and for me it was the same. Like I've been here for 8 years, and it was the same scenario. And I think that still is kind of the same feeling, a little bit less because there are a lot of things happening in other cities, and also like it's more they're making more noise in other parts of the country. But in Mexico, it's like very super central, and like in Mexico City is where most of the things are, and we have talked about that in sometimes like with friends and people in our illustration niche, that we feel that in the US it's very different. Like maybe it's like concentrated in some cities, but it's like in some cities there's a huge illustration scene in New York, but also in Los Angeles, but also in San Diego, and also in blah blah blah. So it's kind of crazy to think that there's so much going on in more than one city, and here like for a lot of decades was just Mexico City, and it's just starting to change that.
Do you think that from the pandemic it helped kind of spread it out, or you still think it's mostly you have to be in Ciudad de Mexico to get those big names?
I don't know if the pandemic helps or force it.
Yeah.
But I think the internet and how now things works like in Instagram and TikTok, I think that it's helping to change that, like everything just in one place.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of artists across all Mexico doing like really, really cool stuff and really, really awesome work. Like it's not geographic anymore, I think.
Yeah, and also like social media, I think that put on the map like people that were doing, I don't know, like in the very north part of Mexico, like from these super, super tiny cities, like not even medium cities, like super tiny. And there were like these brothers making films and music videos for their friends. And they fucking exploded like in YouTube and TikTok. And before you wouldn't even know them like from anywhere. So like that, I think that it's mostly social media that has given exposure to that kind of projects in the provincias.
Yeah, we are proud of the provincia, by the way.
Yeah. You are. Interesting. I feel like here in the US, it's like, I mean, I think it sounds a lot, I'm hearing a lot of the same things where you grow up in the suburbs, las provincias, and then you move to the city for the bigger jobs, the opportunities, blah, blah, blah. And hopefully over time, it gets a little bit more equal. And now I'm really like a stereotypical American. I'm very bad at geography. Is there another big city in Mexico that might have an illustration scene? I'm serious. I'm like, is this?
Yeah. Like, I think the biggest three cities, like in population and also in correlation in the industry would be Guadalajara, where I'm from, and Monterrey, which is like up north, like super north in the border. So, but also like it's not as huge as the Mexico City scene, like definitely.
I love Mexico City. I went there last June. I had such a good time. I had the best time. It was great. It was great.
Next time you have to call.
I know. We weren't homies yet. Okay. Now, something I talk a lot about on the show is the concept of Latinidad, because here in the US, it's very confusing. You know, we have Latin American Heritage Month, and they put all the countries in 1 month. And so guess who gets the most representation? Mexico. And it's good and it's bad, right? Because
yeah, of course,
it reduces everyone to that, and it's kind of confusing. Me as a Chilean person, I never saw nothing Chilean in the US. So I feel like, you know, Mexico gets a lot of just representation here in the US. But can you tell me how you feel about the word Latino, Latina, Latine, Latinx there's a lot of stuff going on here. So I want to talk about it.
What do you think? What do you feel?
Well, last year, I've been working a lot with this project in Texas, in Austin and McAllen, Texas. So I've been in Texas, and I've been like visiting right there and working there. And as I saw this kind of Latino stuff that you are talking about, and the way the people in the US see Mexico. And I think there is a very like unique vision of Mexico. I don't know if it's like correct or incorrect. I just think it's other way to see Mexico. And it's like very particular.
Like what? Tell me the details.
Like the food. Like, you know, the food in Texas is like, it's the Tex-Mex stuff is like a really good example of a mix of how the people in the US see Mexico. Now it's like, it's Mexico, but it's not really Mexico, but I understand. It's like the Cinco de Mayo, like
the Cinco de Mayo
that, all that Cinco de Mayo stuff, like Cinco de Mayo is crazy, and here in Mexico,
doesn't even show up.
No, it's
that's
just
so
like
funny.
it's a day like you don't go to work, and that's it.
Yeah, like President's Day or some other random holiday here. Okay, no, this is really funny. And Tex-Mex food is amazing because when I want,
it's really good.
It's really good. When I want Mexican food, I want Tex-Mex. That's what's normal here. And when I went to Ciudad de Mexico, I couldn't find one burrito, no burritos, and just
like,
because
what?
that's Tex-Mex.
because that's Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
And I ordered one, and it wasn't very good. And I was like, oh, I'll stick to the tacos. Okay. And you.
And that like the thing is that with the concept and the term, like the word Latino or whatever variation, I think I just started to see it more often in the past few years, but I don't relate at all with that kind of, with its presence in pop culture, because I think I'm not part of it. Like whenever I see it mentioned, is Latino people that live outside and that experience a whole like a different kind of lives, like the mix between being Latino, whatever country you were or your parents were from, and the US or whatever other country. So being just like only Mexican and living only in Mexico the whole of my life, I've never felt the need to have like the Latino flag with me. So I don't really relate, and I don't really understand it yet, because I don't have that many friends that are like Latinos living outside of Mexico experiencing other things. So I find it very interesting because I see a lot of discussions and arguments, but I don't know like where I put my opinion on it.
That's why I wanted to talk about it, because, you know, I thankfully now I'm going to get it. But sometimes people DM me like, why do you use the word Latinx, which is just a more inclusive version of Latino? I think it's really important because you only really need it when you are a foreigner.
Last year, we did this online workshop with some people, I think was in Google, and Raúl and y yo. We are like trying to think about how to draw Latino, like how to draw representation, because it's been like a couple of years or maybe more years that I think it's important to start to think that in the things you draw, like skin color, like more ethnic stuff, I guess. And I think that the word Latino and the works of people who think about this term here in Latin America is different, because they represent Latinidad, talking about like new topics or relevant topics around the world, and not just about being from some country. I don't know if that's like clear, but there is like I think it's a really big word here in Latin America, because you can speak about a lot of things that is happening to a lot of people in very different and specific situations.
Yeah, like I think that I'm completely on board with that. It doesn't, like, we see it at least from our side, like not just a label for I'm a Latino artist, but like it transcends the label, and it's about the kind of topics that you address and the kind of motives that you want to put like on the table that maybe aren't present on the table.
Yeah, I think we're having different conversations, and depending on where you are. If you're in Latin America, you're probably talking about the nuances within Latin America, maybe trying to push different agendas about diversity and that kind of stuff. Here, we're still behind, and we're trying to get Americans, gringos, to catch up, right? So it's really interesting talking about it, like from a global standpoint. It's so different, the conversations that we're each having, because for me, up until I moved to New York, if I told someone I was from Chile, they'd be like, what, the Chile? Like the spice? And I would be like, no, the country. And then, I've had people tell me to go back to Mexico. And I'm like, I never, I just visited Mexico last year. It's a great place. I would love to go back. So
I would love to go back there.
I was like, I would love to go back. I don't know why, but I'm going, I guess. So it's just very interesting being on different sides of the conversation.
And also, you know what, that in the past years, we are not like struggling with getting ourselves heard as Mexicans because we're in Mexico, or like Latinos because we live in Latin America, but we've seen like this, like in the same situation of the provincias, like the suburbs and the capital, like in Latin America, I feel that a lot of artists are connecting with other artists from Latin America, and like being like a thing of like being stronger by numbers and building a lot of networking between countries. And we have a lot of internet friends from Chile, from Argentina, from Colombia. And I think that has been grown a lot in the past few years. And that's going to be like a huge force, like to build an entire different catalog from the US illustration scene and the European illustration scene. And I think that it's going strong.
That's cool. I think that the illustration scene, like in all Latin America, is like start to watching like the other Latino countries, like I think now people in Argentina start to watch like illustration in Mexico, or illustrators of Mexico are watching illustration in Chile, Colombia. And that's like super, super cool, because I think that is creating this spirit of Latin America, but people living in Latin America and seeing Latin American artists, and not just seeing what is happening in Europa or what is happening in the US. And I think that is like doing like really cool stuff like here with people
pushing
here
it there, pushing you guys are pushing each other. I love that because, okay, in the US, like I said, everything is about the US all the time. Rarely do you see like a big company working with someone from a different country. It's because it's such a big country too. So that's another reason. So tell me your perspective of, let's say, the US illustration scene, the European illustration scene versus what you're seeing in Latin America. I know you guys are in Mexico, but I'm opening it up.
I think that in the US scene, like, there's a lot going on. Like, there's everything going on in the US scene, because there's like super indie stuff, super underground stuff, super like commercial stuff, like in another level, because like it shows that it's been growing for decades, and there's the resources to keep growing and to be like super pro, but also there's the space to be like super indie and punk. So like in the US scene, you can find everything. But I see like the European scene, for me, the things that I know are just like a lot of stuff that doesn't follow the super commercial US trends. And I like that a lot, especially like people from Denmark and like up north in the European side. Like Charlotte du Mortier, where is she from?
It's for France.
No, she's like
Belgium.
Belgium. So like they have like super cool, like I don't know,
Their
a
own
weird
trend.
mix that it's
Yeah.
not like the usual contemporary illustration. And in Latin America, I think that there's a lot of okay, let me try this word. Authenticity. Is
You
that
nailed
correct?
it. Perfect.
Wow.
Like I feel that people from Chile are drawing a lot of stuff that you can see like, I think it looks like a Chilean illustrator. And that's super difficult to achieve as a country, I think.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really cool. I don't see it that way because I feel like I'm not plugged in enough, you know, like even in my social media, I have to go out of my way to get stuff, international stuff. I have to go look for it. But I love that you're saying that because I think only people in Latin America would be able to see that in the same way that people in Latin America can hear other accents, but like Americans can't.
Just Latino.
Yeah. It's special. Well, because you guys are immersed in it. So it makes a lot of sense. What do you see are the pros and cons of illustrating in Mexico right now?
Okay, in Mexico City or like
In Mexico.
in all the big.
However,
the big
you,
As a Mexican
wherever you
illustrator.
have an opinion.
Well, I think it's a really cool moment to be an illustrator here in Mexico and todo Mexico. I think it's such a big country, and it's such a big country in arts. In the way, I mean, like there is a lot of styles, a lot of people doing different things. In illustration, there is a lot of kind of illustrator like doing like really different stuff, and I think that is super cool. And I really love to be part of that scene, like a little bit. I don't know. And I think it's a really good moment to be an illustrator, and you can do like commercial work. It's always hard to have like good commercial gigs because of the brands, because of the budget. That is like always it's been that way. But I think you can now start to do like other stuff. Like you can start to do like
A podcast.
I think it's a really good moment to be inventive and do different stuff, like really different stuff with illustrations. And I love that. I love that in this moment.
Yeah, I think like as a country, we are not there yet where there's never an easy way into like being a full-time illustrator, but we're not yet like in the decent, I'm an illustrator and I made a decent wage doing that. I don't think we're there yet, but there's definitely a growth, and it's keep on growing and growing and growing. So like the future seems cool. So we don't feel like it's stuck, and we don't feel like it's doing the same thing. And there's like ice turning onto Mexican illustration. So it's promising. That's what I would say. And there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot. So that's like super cool. The scene and the sub scenes, and people are getting together with other people just to making art shows or scenes or whatnot. And it's like, it's growing a lot. There's a lot of support, I think, in the community.
I think you're so right. When I went to Ciudad de Mexico just for vacation, and finally, like my algorithm knew I was in Mexico, I started getting so much stuff. I started noticing how many events you guys had, the different expos. There's just so much happening there. And maybe it may not be as developed as the US, let's say, or Europe, but this is because the US is hyper capitalistic, but I love seeing that the potential that's coming out of Mexico City. And yeah, like you said, I don't know if it's good or bad, the amount of trendiness around Mexico City right now in the US. But I assume it's kind of good for illustration.
Yeah, I think so. Like, there's a lot of layers to that. To that topic.
Yeah. The rent it's higher.
Like
so that's not good.
If you get like gentrification out of the way, I think that the fact is that it's getting more attention. Mexico is getting more attention, and that includes foreign eyes with foreign investment. So that, of course, in a capitalist world, is gonna have an effect in every industry. So yeah.
Fascinating. A lot to unpack there. I mean, let's not go there. Let's turn the conversation here. Okay, so can you guys tell me, I've been listening to Grupo de Autoayuda de Dibujo for a while, but I want to know a little bit more about your personal backgrounds in terms of education. Did you guys go to school for illustration or for art? Did you not go to school at all? Tell me, Raul and Ivan. It's time for a little interruption to remind you to subscribe to the show on YouTube. Just head to youtube.com/Fabiolita Draws. That's the same as my Instagram handle. Or you could just search for Draws in Spanish in the YouTube app and it'll come right up. It'll show right up. The videos are so fun and have visuals. So there's really like so much to love there. Go check it out and hit subscribe to support the show. If you never want to hear a little promo from me like this ever again, and you absolutely despise the fact that I'm interrupting this conversation with a little plug, then head to patreon.com/Draws in Spanish to get promo free episodes and you'll never have to listen to this again, right? Just have smooth episodes. Until then, you could also hit, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Patreon, whatever. I'm giving you options here. You have so many options. But anyways, let's get back to today's episode with Raul and Ivan.
I learned the streets. No, no. I went to the university.
Oh, boo. No, okay.
But the university of the streets. I studied marketing first in the university, and I failed, and I
Me too.
just stopped. Okay, I just stopped.
Marketing as well?
I failed marketing and I went to advertising.
That's it. The same for me. I studied 2 years marketing in la universidad, and then I just hated and leave. And the next year I took graphic design, and that is what I studied. I have a graphic design degree. Yeah.
I can see it in your work. And you?
He's the best combination of
I can see you fail and you fail marketing.
I see it in your work.
I see it in your work for sure. And I think that, it's kind of common. I've seen a lot of illustrators who studied graphic design.
Yeah, for sure. That happens a lot, especially in Mexico, that we don't have, like, 10 years ago, there were no illustration careers at all. So yeah, the natural choice would be graphic design. I didn't even knew that I would do graphic. Like, I thought that graphic design was just like doing boring stuff, like graphic, but boring stuff. So I didn't know what to study. And I went into industrial design. So I learned to make products and stuff. And it was really fun, but I never, ever did anything with it. Anything.
You don't know. I think I've talked to 5 or 6 people who went to school in Latin America and went to school for industrial design. It seems to have been a popular choice at some time.
Yeah. And I don't know why. I think that I'm not sure. I think that people were just thinking about like
sounds cool.
This kind of like these super famous products like the user, to make use that is like metallic. I don't remember even the name. But like these products that are like at the mama store and that kind of stuff, I think that people were like, oh, I'm going to be famous. Like I'm going to do a super cool chair. So yeah, like it was like midway through industrial design that I learned even how to scan a drawing and like just like put it from the school notebook to the computer and digitalize stuff. And there was when I thought that I wanted to do illustration. So I just learned through my one friend that used to draw.
And so you, while you were in school, decided to go into illustration to start doing it. And how about, I keep saying, how about you and you and you, and no one's going to know what I'm talking about because I'm pointing. Pero Ivan,
you too.
Ivan, how did you go from graphic design to illustration? Did you guys, now I'm talking to both of you, did you guys both go right into creative careers after college? Fill in the gap for me.
I finished to study graphic design, and I always been like drawing like since always. And when I was studying graphic design, basically my girlfriend she was studying too graphic design, but she was like very clear about she want to be an illustrator, and I didn't know that exists like that.
That word even.
No. That like so specific. And basically she's explained to me what is to be and I was, I want to do that. and that's it. And then I was always like looking for like, I don't know, like graffiti artists and people doing stickers and that kind of artists. I always loved that kind of art and artist. And then when I discovered like illustration, I just saw like there's like artists doing the both, like they doing graffiti and illustration, or doing graphic design and illustration, or doing stickers and it was like Barry McGee, like you know, that kind
Barry
of
McGee, yeah,
that kind of artist. And then I just figure out how to do it and start to think I want to be an illustrator. And just doing it. It's just like that. Just do it.
I always feel like there's this point where people learn that is a job. Like the word illustrator is introduced to you, because before it's like graphic design, just artist, and you're like, wait, that's impossible.
And it wasn't very popular or even clear at the time, like the illustrator like figure.
Yeah, as a career, like it didn't have a form. And that's why I think a lot of people like us didn't know that it was a choice. And like now that you mentioned Barry McGee, like my transition almost came with this friend of mine that used to draw, and I drew since forever, and I liked especially like the skate scene, like all this Toy Machine and Girl and Zero and blah blah blah. I used to print their ads and just copy the drawings. And that was like
I love that
best stuff. And then one friend of mine showed me when I was at school in industrial design, he showed me Beautiful Losers and we watched it together. So that film, and I know that a lot of people in our age group.
High five. But it's such a good movie. I try to watch it every year.
Yeah, that movie like inspired a lot of people, and that movie didn't just inspire me like I gotta do this, but also like helped me figure out the shape of what an illustrator is, and okay, fuck it. And then like that, and with so cool artists in that film is just
like the in that movie too is Geoff McFetridge. I never know how to say his name, but with because he did the Apple Watch designs here. Oh, now you don't see it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can be commercial and you can do cool stuff and you don't have to be one or the other, because that's what's hard, is thinking like you have to be commercial and you have to do graphic design, or you have to be an independent artist and never make any money. And they really showed you in that movie like, oh, maybe you could do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But it's always the struggle, right? Like you don't know if you have to be like so pure, like just to do art, and then or just like be like a sellout and like just
where do you guys fit there?
I don't know. I never know. I'm just trying.
I'm just doing my best.
I'm just doing my best.
I think it's always an active thing to do to achieve that balance. Like you don't ever I'm balanced and it's forever balanced. Yeah. But the thing is that what I felt more comfortable with is as my work became more and more personal to me, and not even like being super intimate with my work, but just like, okay, I can see myself in my work. That just became my sweet spot, that it doesn't like the form could be not that super deep or super conceptual, but if I identify my work and I feel it authentic, then it works for my artistic side, but it also works for my commercial side. And that's the kind of sweet spot that
that's what I try and do too. I'm like, as long as I love it, whoever wants to buy it, maybe I would sell it to them, but I have to love it, even if I'm not selling it, right? If it's just for me and I'm happy with it, hopefully somebody buys it so that I can make a living. But That's a whole separate thing.
We're just trying to make a living.
We're just trying to make a living. Yeah. Tell me about how you guys develop your characters for your illustrations, because both of you draw a lot of characters. I don't draw any characters. I avoid drawing characters and figures if I can. So I want to know how you guys got into that. I have a sense it's with Pictoline, something there, but tell me.
I think we both are like we've always been like very character driven. And speaking for myself, it's just this huge influence from cartoons and just like gravitating towards graphic design with characters. And it's just like a thing that I love, and that it's just a huge world to explore, just designing characters. It's just like my way to empathize with the world. And
how do you just draw it in your sketchbook? Like, where do they come from? Because to me, that feels so like magical.
Yeah, sketchbook.
Sketchbook? Okay. And you?
For me, was always comics, because in high school, I used to do comics, but comics more like comic strip, not like Marvel comics or DC comics, more like Casper, Casper, like comic strips. Like I really love comics, but comic strips.
Not anime? Did you have an anime phase?
I like anime, but I think like mainstream Mexico anime, like Dragon Ball Z, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I used to have like comics, but really like the cheaper ones, like puestos de revista como Condorito. That's from Chile, actually. And I always have like comics from Harvey Comics. That's like Casper and Ricky Ricon. I don't know what is the name from Richie Rich, actually. But I always saw in that comics the characters was like super important. And I always, when I draw comics, always invented like a character, and then I try to tell like a little joke or something. And then when I started doing illustration, I start to study character design. That is something that I really, really like. And since then, I always, when I have an illustration idea, mainly came from a character idea.
Yes. That's what I noticed in you guys' work. Like both of your work is very much like a little character that does an action or brings something to life. And it has so much joy. And yeah, I think it's really fun to tell a story that way. It helps, right? It's easier to tell a story when you have a little character. Now, I have this question for you that is kind of funny. Raul, you have an Instagram post that says, I wish I had something to say. That's what it says, the illustration. In I think it's in Spanish and I translated it, but whatever. So what do you do when you feel like you have nothing to say with your work? How do you fix that? Because I think that's something really hard for people who are just starting. They draw fan art because they don't know what to say.
Yeah. It's a like that drawing that you're referencing. It's kind of the result when I don't know what I want to say. And the thing is that I found being on the sketchbook is a great place to to have an open mic, like a permanent open mic. So even if you're like just improvising, like, hey, yeah, what's up? And so like you're just flowing and dropping stupid ideas or like empty ideas. But eventually you're going to hit with, this thing that I thought the other day, this feeling that I'm figuring it out that I didn't know how to like, put on paper. So how I deal with it is just like opening the sketchbook and just throwing it out, like opening the water bottle and just shaking it till something comes out. And also like addressing, like I have a lot of drawings and like pieces that talk about not having anything to say or like not being able to block feelings and that kind of stuff. And when I address that kind of stuff, it usually turns out to be something that I really like. So it's a common topic for me.
It's kind of meta for you. All right. Do you ever journal?
No, I've never ever tried journaling, actually. Just like dream journals.
I would be curious to see what your work looks like after a journaling session.
Cool. I'm going to try.
Ivan, I went to your website before this session. I was looking at everything, you guys. I have listened to like 10 episodes straight, I think. So on your website it says, I will draw for money, which is great because we all hope and want to draw for money so we can make a living. What do you hate to draw for money?
I think I don't know if I hate it. Reggae flyers bad. No, you know what? It's more like I have these things that I really don't, because even for money, 5 years ago, maybe, I remember some politicians sent me a mail because their team, I don't know, they wanted me to draw some things, the
political party. Yeah.
And that is a thing that I just don't feel comfortable doing it. So I just don't do that. And I don't know, maybe I should change my slogan.
Maybe you should get into politics.
No, I hate it because I feel in that way I have a responsibility with my work, and that is some place I just don't want to go. And yeah, I think that is something I just don't do, and I never did that.
Okay, that's legit. One time I made a drawing for a political thing, and it got kind of crazy. It's like the most insane drawing I've ever made. Yeah, it was like it was when Trump was in office. This was like kind of common to, I don't know, it was kind of easy to make Trump illustrations and sell them.
We did a bunch of that.
We draw a lot of
yeah. So, but I also hate drawing logos for money. I just hate it. No thanks. That's just me though. Ivan, you might love logos.
Yeah, I actually really like to do logos.
I could see that with your work because it's really graphic. Then my last set of questions here. Why did you launch Grupo de Autoayuda de Dibujo?
It's a great question. Both of us being from outside of Mexico City, like we both had our group of friends, of creative friends that we used to hang out and do stuff with, and just being like, not even in a professional way, just like in a social way, being with people that like to draw. And here in Mexico City, we didn't have like this like big social network to do that with. So since it's not as easy to go like to an art show and be like, hey, do you want to be my friend and draw sometimes? So we wanted to have to organize something that functions as a gravitational pull for other people that like to draw. So the first thing we did as Grupo Autoayuda de Dibujo was this event or series of events called Café and Dibujos, like coffee and drawings. And it was like we used this space, this very nice space in Mexico City in a coffee place. And we launched like a subscribe, like a register, and a lot of people came, and we had like a small talk about being freelance illustrator and had like drawing and creative dynamics. And it went so well that we keep on doing it for a couple of months. And then so like we started building that, and we didn't make like a lot of like intimate friends, but the thing is that we found something much bigger, like just like this community eager to connect and eager to learn. And then the podcast was just like a side from that project, and then became the main thing.
Right. It was an extension that became the crown jewel of the whole project. Wow. I love that. I feel like it's so rare to see things come from real life events now. Like now it's always the opposite, where it's like internet project with a live event. And you guys are driven from the live event, which makes sense because there's a lot of just the name Grupo de Autoayuda de Dibujo is very inviting, and it feels like a community versus like just, Ivan and Raul talking.
Yeah, it feels like a bunch of chairs and troubled artists talking about their lives.
And then how do you guys balance creating the podcast, which has a YouTube channel, and your own freelance work? Because that's a lot.
Yeah. I don't know if we are like super balanced.
Every time I ask someone that question, they're always like, there is no balance.
There is no balance. You know what? I think the thing is we kind of take this seriously, when we decide, okay, let's do this like a little more like informed, we start like, we have like Monday meetings and we have like, okay, I have to do this and Raul have to do this. And one thing I really like to work with Raul, because we like, if we have clear what we need to do, we always deliver.
You guys hold each other accountable, it sounds like.
Yeah. But we don't have to remember like, oh, Raul, you should. No, it's just happened. And I really like the chemistry of working.
I
love you too.
I love you too.
Yeah, the thing is that the balance, I think, is going to come eventually as soon as we figure out that how to capitalize with a podcast. That I think that's like a thing for every podcaster. I think that the drive was so present, like the drive to do stuff, that we're just like, okay, I remember like this day that we decided to get out our full-time jobs, and we had this talk like, we're going to do this. Okay. Yeah. We're going to take it like super seriously. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're just like, we're fully committed, and that's it. Like everything just came with it.
I'm so jealous of you guys' partnership. It sounds like you guys help each other and you guys give each other a little push, right? Because do you think it would have been harder to quit your jobs if you were alone?
I think for sure it helped to have this project just like going and dreaming about, how would it be if we like put, instead of 20% of our effort, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that was like a huge point of advantage, just like to be dreaming of doing more with
and
it.
dreaming together, because then you can kind of influence each other.
That's our new slogan. Grupo Autoayuda de Dibujo.
Love it. Dreaming together.
What is the biggest dream for Grupo de Autoayuda de Dibujo?
You want to say it?
Just dreaming together, like more.
No, I think that our big dream would be like to have this as a sustainable project that just allows us to be as ambitious as we want to be. So we would love to do maybe do an European tour and a US tour and a Latin America tour, and just like keep on doing art shows and keep on just like, I think Mallorquín and I like a lot to diversify. So it's just like, how do we keep on doing this and just fucking
blowing it up?
Blowing it up. Yeah, that's our dream. Just like doing everything we want to do with it.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. I think you guys will be able to do it. I think it's hilarious that you guys call each other Pardo and Mallorquín. It just makes me laugh so much. I'm like, why is this happening?
And fun fact, Mallorquín is also his last name. Like his second last name is Pardo. So we could be Pardo.
We're cousins in some way.
That's why you guys vibe so well together.
Maybe that's why.
Well, thank you so much for being on Draws in Spanish in English. I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for everything and nothing. Where can people find you?
So we're on Instagram, as it's the longest username probably ever.
It's super bad.
At Grupo de Autoayuda de Dibujo, that I bet you have to Google it on the description that Fabi's gonna put, because it's for non-Spanish speakers gonna be hell.
But if you Google it, it's there. Like...
I'll link it linked in the show notes. That and your YouTube channel, and then your individual Instagrams as well, so everybody can find you, because you guys are so great. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.
Gracias. Adiós.
Bueno, eso es todo. That's all I have for you guys for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I absolutely loved recording with other podcasters, especially Raul and Ivan, who are just so fun to talk to. Be sure to follow them over on Instagram and follow them on YouTube so you can stay up to date. If you can listen and hear and comprehend Spanish, you definitely should go check out Grupo de Autoayuda de Dibujo, their podcast. It's absolutely amazing. They have episodes as well as minisodes to listen to, so be sure to check it out. I'll leave it linked in the show notes. And yeah, you're going to be a huge fan. Now, before you go, remember to hit subscribe or share this episode with a friend. Those are 2 things you can do for free to support the show. And if you want to listen to a personal podcast from me about what I'm up to in my career or listen to extended episodes of the show, go ahead and check out the Patreon at patreon.com/drawsinspanish. Now, before we go, remember to go check out Grupo de Autoayuda Dibujo on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, because I'm going to be on one of their episodes speaking in Spanish. So if you want to go listen to me speak Spanish, probably mess up a word, if not a ton of words, then go subscribe so you can listen to that episode when it drops. Thank you. And until the next Tuesday, until the next episode, see you guys. Thank you. Bye.